Journalist Prashant Kanojia was arrested by the Uttar Pradesh police for a social media post on Chief Minister Adityanath. Yes, you heard that right. Arrested for a tweet. Thanks for joining us. I'm Harsha Subramaniam. The question we're asking today is this brazen abuse of law and state power by the Adityanath government, or is this misuse of freedom of speech? I'm joined by KTS Tulsi, senior advocate. I'm also joined by Krishna Prasad, senior journalist, and defense analyst Abhijit Iyer-Mitra, who was a victim in a recent episode of a similar nature. Mr. Tulsi, I'll start this conversation with you. The case has been filed by a police officer under Section 500, that is defamation of the IPC, 505, statements conducing to public mischief, and Section 66 of the IT Act. Is this FIR tenable? Is this admissible under law, you think?
I think it's a gross misuse of the law. There is no question of it being an offense, of any offense, what to talk of these offenses that have been mentioned. You see, the essence of democracy is a government by debate. You can't be punished for holding a particular view which is contrary to the view of the state or the chief minister. It is fundamental right and one of the most prized rights of a citizen to be able to criticize and express an opinion. And so is it the duty of a journalist to disseminate that view. It's for the people to form their judgment. So I am absolutely shocked. This is most grossest abuse of the of the law.
Sure. Mr. Tulsi, Kanojia posted a news video clip of a lady who allegedly defamed the Chief Minister. The Chief Minister could well argue my personal reputation has been tarnished here. He's well within his rights to file a defamation case, but oddly here the police seems to have taken action suo motu. Can defamation be a subject matter of police investigation in that sense?
It cannot be. If the Chief Minister has been defamed as a person, he has a right to file a case against the other person himself. But it cannot be a directive given to the prosecutor and use of state machinery for settling scores with a person who holds the opposite views as compared to yours. So I think that this is gross misuse of the state machinery, and this has been so held in many cases, including that of the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan.
Okay. Defamation is a touchy topic. Abhijit, I'll come to you. You've been at the receiving end of state power. The Odisha government arrested you for a tweet. There's a difference between what the law says in spirit and how the state uses it. What did you make of this Kanojia episode, and do you draw parallels to your own personal experience?
Right. So one thing I've realized is that this suo motu action is complete nonsense. They don't, in fact, actually just take action unless they're directed from above. The orders always come from above, especially an interstate arrest like this, where the UP police have basically come into Delhi, crossed their own jurisdiction. They should have technically gone to the Delhi police to execute the arrest in Delhi. They did not. They came, executed an illegal arrest, taken him back there, and now he's in custody for a few weeks, which tells you about how the judiciary of this country works as well. Because, in India, we don't have the fruits of a poisonous tree concept, that if the process has been violated, the conviction or the accusation or the arrest is deemed invalid. Here we don't have that. So in practice, what happens is the police are free to violate rules at will and get arrested. In my case, of course, they followed all the rules. That's a different matter. But here what we have to understand is this kind of an interstate arrest, an extradition arrest like this, could not have been executed unless it had come from the Chief Minister or somebody very high up in the cabinet himself or herself. And you made a point, Harsha, that Yogi Adityanath is within his rights to order to file a defamation. I'm sorry, that's not the way I see it. If he is in fact a yogi, then he's given up all worldly possessions and worldly attachments and so on and so forth. He can't go around then interfering in worldly subjects like this. So he has to make up his mind if he's yogi or not, because if he's filing a defamation case, then he's clearly not a yogi.
Okay. Freedom of expression, Krishna Prasad, implies freedom to criticize and the freedom to offend as well. But the Constitution also clearly says that this freedom comes with reasonable restrictions. We are seeing many instances on social media where abusive language is used. What to your mind can be a deterrent for this abusive behavior if one has to keep the defamation route aside? Krishna Prasad.
Harsha, I'm not inclined to have a very general view on this, because I think this issue of defamation is now spilt across the country. It's not just Uttar Pradesh, it's not just Gujarat, it's Orissa, it's Karnataka, it's Tamil Nadu, a whole variety of states which are now involved in this kind of procedure in terms of attacking journalists. The reasonable restrictions that the Constitution of India places under Article 15(1)(a) to E, do not include issues like this. If you look at the specific tweet of Mr. Kanojia, what is he really saying? You see, the thing is that, is this a comment? Is this a charge? Is this a criticism? What is it? So it seems to be some blanket set of laws that have been applied post facto. And it seems to have, as most legal experts, including Mr. Tulsi, will tell you, they have little chance of surviving in a court of law. So the point to me is this, that various state governments of not particularly any one particular political party, various state governments, various political parties seem to have evolved their own ways of dealing with criticism, their own ways of dealing with anything to do with the media. For example, I'm speaking to you from Karnataka just now. And if you see the track record of the current Chief Minister of Karnataka, who belongs to the Janata Dal Secular, which is in a coalition with the Congress party, it seems to be that the Chief Minister does not like satire. The Chief Minister does not like any comments on his government. The Chief Minister does not like anything to be said about his son. Editors have been charged and FIR'd, and today in today's newspapers, there's more from the Chief Minister and his family. So it seems to be that the politicians, whichever state they are, seem to have developed a kind of allergy towards the media, and they are using all the the instruments of power that they have, and deploying all kinds of legislation and laws to deal with the situation. So it's no longer about writing a letter to the editor. Sure. It's no longer about giving a rejoinder. It's no longer about any due process that we used to follow in journalism. It just seems to be, and this is really a Gujarat model at work, it just seems to be that politicians seem to think that the first recourse to any criticism, any satire, any comment is to send the policeman to your doorstep. And that is really very dangerous. And I think you're seeing that play across the country. And Mr. Kanojia's case is a particularly acute one, because, as all legal experts have already elucidated, it has no chance of surviving in a court of law. But I also see from today's news wires that he's been sent to the cooler for 2 weeks. So you are really seeing, as Mr. Iyer-Mitra pointed out, a kind of a dual play of politicians, the executive, the judiciary, and all of this seem to be happening in some kind of a vacuum.
Okay, I'll bring it one slightly different dimension as well. Abhijit, in this case where people say, and who also argue that Kanojia has been notorious for his rabid comments, I mean, you can see his tweets and so on. Now, you can agree or disagree with the person's views, you can criticize them, but he obviously can't be arrested for it. I mean, it's not illegal to have extreme views. But what, again, comes back to my question, what can be a deterrent for abusive behavior then?
See, here's the point. Abuse is freedom of speech, whether we like it or not. As long the gold standard is that it is freedom of speech, not freedom of action. The only thing, according to me, that should be arrested is incitement to violence, which means direct incitement to violence, which is go kill somebody, go rape somebody, so on and so forth. Physical violence and the incitement to it, not even implicit, tacit incitement to it, it has to be active incitement to it, should be arrested. Other than that, abuse is abuse. If you don't like it, block the person, turn away, move away, so on and so forth. People have a right to abuse whether we like it or not. They have a right to call you nasty things and nasty names, and you have the recourse of filing a defamation. I personally oppose criminal defamation, of course, but that's a different matter. It's there in the Constitution, so go ahead and use that. My point here is, however, that Mr. Kanojia had just one tweet, which I suspect now will be retrospectively used against him as an afterthought, which said, "Kill saints, save humanity," or something like that, referring to Hindu sadhus. Now, that tweet is from 2016. How is that a possible incitement to violence now? Now, if you remember what happened in JNU, Bharat ke tukde honge is perfectly legit. But Bharat ke barbadi tak jang rahegi. See, jang is that violence bit. You're encouraging violence in a sense, according to me. Of course, Mr. Tulsi and Mr. Krishna Prasad can have a different view on it. The arrest there was immediate for whatever reason. I mean, real or imagined, whatever. Here, you are basically projecting a case onto him from a tweet 2.5, 3 years back. It's ludicrous. It's the worst kind of abuse of power. And if you've noticed, this kind of abuse of power is actually on the rise at the state level. It doesn't happen so much at the central level by any government, either Congress or BJP. It's very much a case of state power being abused, as in the states, the federal entities here abusing their powers.
Sure.
For me, speech is sacrosanct. Abuse, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, is freedom of speech, and that's that.
Okay. Krishna Prasad, you know, the implications of the media. The Editors Guild has put out a statement saying that and I quote, that the police action is high-handed and arbitrary and amounts to an authoritarian misuse of law. The Guild sees this as an effort to intimidate the press and stifle freedom of expression. The implication on this, Krishna Prasad, there is obviously this chilling effect on the media by suppressing it from doing its own job. How do you think that the media can respond? There are far too many cases now, that you're seeing, as you yourself mentioned, across India. How does the media respond other than just, putting out statements by the Editors Guild?
Well, Harsha, this is a very complicated question because, as a member of the Editors Guild, we have all done some things over a long period of time to rein this in. But as you see, for example, in the case of Mr. Kanojia, what has been applied to him as a journalist who used to work for a website is is the IT Act, Section 66. Okay, this is simply because this seemed to have been a Twitter feed. What happens now is really that we are dealing with a monster whose shape and size and form we do not know. We do not know what specific act of some telecommunications or Information Technology Act can be invoked to rein in journalists. So therefore, what's happened is that the journalists are caught in a bit of a time warp. We've all dealt with certain kinds or certain sections of the Act, certain sections, certain acts, and so on and so forth. But that now seems to have spilled out in the case of the digital age, where it's not just the defamation cases which are launched against us or any of those things. It's now information technology, telecommunications, and all of these things which are being brought into play. So how do we react? What we've been trying to do consistently across industry bodies is to get people to react. And what I have found, personally speaking, is that in many situations these days, newspapers and journalists have become so inured to the idea of being, reined in like this that they don't even react. Let me give you a very clear, specific example of a member of parliament who has served 2 times on the Press Council of India, 2 times. Takes out an injunction order against the media, believe it or not, against 49 media organizations because he wants to prevent something from coming out. Okay. So what has happened is this, which is that politicians have found new ways of gagging the media. Okay. The media doesn't seem to have enough, in its armory to deal with these things. And also the media is now so tired. Industry bodies are so conflicted, that they don't even react to many situations, except these high-profile cases that we see in the media. There are so many things on the underground. For example, a Manipuri journalist called Kishore Chandra Wangkhem spent 6 months or so in jail because of something he wrote against the Manipur government. And nobody in Delhi even woke up. Nobody issued a press release like the Editors Guild has now seemingly issued. Okay. The Editors Guild did not issue a statement in the case of Wangkhem. So it seems to me that the media is very tired of this, and it doesn't know how to react to this.
This seems to be a difficult situation, Mr. Tulsi. Sorry, we lost your line, but my last word with you. Is this a problem in law? This is a point that Abhijit was alluding to as well. If defamation is decriminalized, if defamation is treated only as a civil wrong and not as a criminal offense, do you think that will restrict the state from potential misuse?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with the law, and the Supreme Court has explained the law keeping in view the constitutional background which confers the freedom of speech and expression. But this is the misuse of the law. There can be no law that the governments or the chief ministers will not misuse the law for their own protection. This is gross misuse of the law, and he needn't think that there is something wrong with the law. I think that retaining Section 500 on the statute book serves a salutary function because you can't allow people to ruin somebody's reputation without thinking of the consequences. So there should be a civil wrong, and it should also be a criminal wrong if it is malicious propaganda. So I don't feel that there is anything wrong at all. It's the application of law.
Okay.
And whatever may be the law, it will turn out to be a paper tiger if it is not enforced correctly.
All right, Mr. Tulsi, Abhijit, Iyer-Mitra, Krishna, Prasad, many thanks indeed for joining us with your perspectives. If you have been, thank you so much for watching.